Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back to Potomac Watch. We're chatting about the Senate's filibuster rule and what Kamala Harris has to say about blowing it up. Alicia, I want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, there's some merit to divided government in our current polarized state without allowing, like Bill says, a blank check. Do you see any Republicans on the trail raising the profile of this issue? Because it hasn't come up as much as I might have expected when the Democrats are largely, there are very few dissenters on the Democratic side now to blowing up the filibuster. Obviously, Manchin and Sinema have been bulwarks against that, but they have taken so much abuse for it. And so there really aren't, even some of the rank and file Democratic senators are unlikely to have the courage to stop this. So do you see Republicans raising it into a higher profile issue? Is it something Trump should take up as a reason to give him another look?
Look, I think one of the problems is that a lot of people just don't understand what the filibuster is and how it works, because it is kind of it's not actually in the Constitution. I mean, even though it may have roots in it and its formation may be based on the constitutional principles that Bill just outlined, that the Senate should be kind of help cool the tempers from the House. It's not actually enshrined in the Constitution. A lot of people wonder, well, what's wrong with majority rule? And so this would actually, I think, require some of an education of the public. I think maybe a smarter way of getting out it is just to list all of what Democrats would plan to do if they take control. Because there's no doubt that I think that at this point they would blow up the filibuster. So you could present it's not just about abortion rights or that they would try to codify Roe v. Wade nationwide. They could, to Bill's point, they could try to pack the Supreme Court by either direct or indirect means, whether that's to pass the legislation that Schumer, Durbin, and White House have been pushing that would impose certain ethics rules on the Supreme Court justices and require them to, or give an appellate court basically power to force them to recuse themselves in cases in which any third parties accuse them of being conflicted. Well, this is another way of packing the court by which essentially conservative justices could be forced to recuse themselves of important cases just because some kind of liberal groups complain about them. But also before, adding Puerto Rico or Washington, D.C. as states that would allow their Democrats to entrench their power. And I think that you just go down the laundry list of all the radical things that Democrats plan to do if they take control of the White House, Senate, and House. And I think you don't need to even try to get into explaining what the filibuster actually does or prevents. You just say that this is what they intend to do if they take power.
Right. I think you're right to frame it as a raw power grab exercise, because once you get past the filibuster, the same progressives claim that the Senate is an anti-democratic institution because Wyoming has too much representation in it, because DC's not in it. I mean, these are purely power plays. Bill, we'll let you have the last word. And one of the things I find fascinating about this is that Kamala Harris has told us very little about her worldview and her beliefs and is trying to run this lightning campaign into the White House without anybody finding out. But she chose to wade into this issue and say out loud that she's open to blowing up the filibuster. And I think that suggests that she really does subscribe to the same agenda, the same entitlement state agenda that she's subscribed to her entire political career, and that this pivot to the middle that we're reading so much about is largely a fiction.
Look, I think she's only thinking about November. And once she gets past that, she says she wants to abolish the filibuster, just a carve out for Roe. She knows it won't stop with Roe. There'll be all the other priorities that Alicia listed, but it gets her through November. And after November, we too late. That's what we'll find out. So I think it's just short-term thinking. And, since she has the media on her side, they're not going to ask the questions you just did about the other cases and what's going to happen. So I think it's probably a wise strategy on her part. She's trying to accentuate abortion as the issue, and that's what it's for. But it's going to open the door to all sorts of things, but we're not going to find out until February if she's elected.
Yep. And that's one more risk voters will have to price in. Well, thanks, Alicia and Bill, for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with more Potomac Watch.